Hello everyone, welcome back to my team selection video. A very long overdue video. So I have to apologize for this. I've not done a team selection video for 3 weeks now. Look, I've been traveling and I'm horrible with this OBS stuff, so I couldn't carry the equipment. So we are back, and I will now try to be consistent until the end of the season. We've only got like 5 weeks left. So thank you for joining again. This is Pras from the FPL Wire, as you know. Let's get right into it. It's already Friday evening, and a lot of us are on Free Hit. Even if you're not on a Free Hit, you want to know what Free Hitters are doing, because I'm sure you're waiting on your transfers. A lot of you are looking good as well if you're not on a Free Hit. So let's get right into it. I'm not going to talk about my team this week. I'm basically straight going to go into Gameweek 17, which is important but also not important, because this is basically the exact mirror fixtures of what happened in Gameweek or what the fixtures that are happening in Gameweek 37 happened in Gameweek 17, obviously reverse in terms of home and away. Some actually interesting ones. Liverpool 6, Spurs 3. So are these things repeated? Of course not. But it's an interesting one to know, right? Salah got 21 points. Diaz scored. Newcastle 4, Ipswich 0. Isak scored a hat-trick. Chelsea did nothing against Everton. But then if you're thinking of that and looking at that as a sample, then Palmer also scored 4 goals against Everton at Stamford Bridge last year. Fulham kept a clean sheet. Wolves kept a clean sheet. Who scored for Wolves? Cunha. So there's a lot of narratives from earlier this season on the goal scorers. Bournemouth beat Man United 3-0, kept a clean sheet. Who scored? Kluivert scored. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. A lot of times it doesn't work and it's meaningless, but I thought it's interesting anyway. And shout out to FPL Rockstar, who highlighted this, that these are the exact same fixtures from Game Week 17. So, by the way, I'm not talking about my team. That I should have started with that. I'm not talking about backwards because everybody's looking forward. I'm at 6K. Bench boost didn't work. I got between 8 to 12 points depending on who you categorize as going on the bench. So that's definitely not what I wanted. But we're not going to talk about that. I've been basically straddling between 3K to 9K for the last 10 game weeks. I still have rank goals of beating my best ever rank, which is 4K, but obviously I'll be happy with whatever I end up with if it's under 10K. If I've bottled the top 10K, that's not very nice. Let's go to this, the Rob T slide. So, a couple of very interesting things here. Thing number one is let's go by team. So, Liverpool, top of goal scorers. As you saw, they scored 6 in the previous fixture. Spurs are generally leaky. But what's interesting is Liverpool are not even in the top 3 for defense. So it's not like a Liverpool-Southampton fixture. It's a Liverpool-Spurs fixture, which basically tells you Spurs are good for a goal. So for me, that already says, why should I chase a Liverpool defense with an Alisson or with a Van Dijk? Now, Van Dijk has his own goal threat, so maybe he's an exception. But for me, if I'm going to go for a defender, it's going to be Newcastle, Chelsea, or Wolves. That's what I'm thinking in terms of over 40% odds. Now, Fulham's there at 36%. Sessegnon for me is a little bit of an anomaly because he's playing out of position. If it's not Sessegnon, I probably won't have a Fulham defender. So that's where I am in terms of thinking for defense, and that's why Liverpool is slightly different, where a lot of people are thinking about double up Liverpool attack and no Liverpool defender. You see it here. Why? Newcastle are actually slightly different to Liverpool. Their goal scoring odds are almost the same as Liverpool, but then their clean sheet odds are well above anyone else. So, number one, if you don't believe that and you think, you know what, Leicester are way more terrible than Ipswich, Newcastle are also better than Wolves, right, in terms of defense. So, if you disagree with it, fair enough. But this is telling me that if you wanted to chase, a lot of people I've seen, and I'll talk about a slide from Solio, which shows you basically stacking. A lot of people will be stacked up on 2 attackers, 1 defender. You want to go different? Go double defense. And that's one way of trying to be different, and in a logical way, or in a way that still gives you the expected points or still gives you the probability of doing well. Chelsea, on the other hand, are fairly low in terms of attack, 1.85. But then there's a whole bunch of these teams, right? Between 1.85 and 2, all these teams, which tells me is not too different. If you went for Danny Welbeck, who's on 2 expected goals for the team, versus a Evanilson who's on 1.95, versus a Raul Jimenez who's on 1.95, even, a Cunha 1.95. So obviously the market odds take into account the opponent. And so for me, again, another area where if you want it to be different, depending on your aspirations, your rank goals, your mini leagues, You can be different here. You don't have to pick the template Cunha and Raul Jimenez. You can go for a Welbeck. You can go for an Evan Nilsson. You can go for a Chris Wood. Chris Wood is at 1.65, slightly lower than everybody else, but we know he's a superhero, right? He scores. He doesn't need 1.65 expected goals. He needs one chance. And so, also okay. So I'll try to, in this video, try to give my view on if you were chasing, what it would be. Fortunately for me, I don't have to make those chasing moves. I can simply pick the team based on who I think scores the most points, but you can be wrong on that. So these odds are telling me double Liverpool attack makes more sense. These odds are telling me between double Newcastle attack or double Newcastle defense, not much in it. And I would rather have a Wolves defender or a couple of Wolves defenders if I was really chasing, and maybe Cucurella is not a bad shout. That's basically the summary. Let's go to players. So I just talked about the fact that there's good strikers here. Look, Welbeck has higher expected goals than Cunha. Now you could argue Cunha has better bonus point potential, so basically he bridges that gap. But it's interesting, and I think Raul Jimenez being as far high, like there's like over 0.1 difference between, or 10% difference between Welbeck and Raul Jimenez, or 15% or 17% difference between Cunha and him. It's material. Like between Strand Larsen and Raul Jimenez is a 20% difference. So for me, Raul Jimenez is locked for that reason, that his goal share is very, very high because Muniz is out, and I think he's a good shout against Southampton if you wanted that attack potential. In midfield is very interesting as well. So Salah's obviously at top. Then you again have Liverpool midfielders. So Diaz, Jota, but their minutes are a little bit iffy, right? I mean, look, I think Diaz starts. Between Jota and Gakpo, anyone can start. I've looked at a lot of predicted lineups, and most of them have Diaz starting, but very few, they're split between Jota and Gakpo. And it's probably got to do with Gakpo's fitness, how Slot perceives him. But Diaz looks good anyway. So looks like a good shout for a second midfielder. And then you go all the way down to Palmer, 0.43, not very high. So the markets already reflect the lack of form. But what I'm trying to tell you, he's still the third best pick in terms of midfield. So people who are trying to go different, I don't think not going Palmer is the way to go different. If anything, Palmer is your upside. Palmer has that potential to score the brace, to score 4 goals even, like he scored it twice in the last year. So I would, I'm trying to give ideas on if you're chasing, what can you do? I would not chase with not going Palmer. Again, it's a 1 week thing. You want to go different, you can do anything you want, right? So you don't have to go with my advice. But I can only tell you, objectively speaking, if I was ranked 1 million, I would still have Palmer in my team. If I was ranked 1, I would still have Palmer in my team. That's all I'll say on Palmer. And then Kluivert is up there as well as the 4th, 5th midfielder. You have Newcastle midfielders popping up here as well. So you can see Gordon. You don't see Murphy here. Murphy is all the way down to 19. You want to take him on? Take him on. His ownership will be pretty high. And speaking of ownership, let's look at this chart from Solio Analytics. So what it's trying to do is basically, I did a post on Twitter to ask for people's free hit drafts screenshots. And so there's a sample of about 130 people who replied. And it's basically taken the effective ownership. Very nice, smart tool by Sir Talp, Johnny Curry, James, and Jorgen, who are part of the Solio team. And they basically built this in terms of effective ownership. So 2 things to say on this. Number 1, not all those drafts are reflective of where things will be. People's views change between then and today. So that caveat I'm giving you now. And the second thing is, not everybody's on a free hit, right? So let's say 8 Nuri here is on 92%. That doesn't mean 8 Nuri's effective ownership will be 92%. It means about 70% if they free hit, and 90% on free hit have 8 Nuri, then 63% is basically his EO from free hitters. Then you have people who are buying 8 Nuri as well who are not on free hit. So therefore, roughly you can say, okay, he'll be about 70% effective ownership. This is what it's trying to do. Very high ownership for Sessegnon. A lot of people believe he starts. That's nice. Interesting one, Diaz was on almost three quarters of teams, or more than 3/4 of teams. So a lot of people have made up their mind that Diaz, our second Liverpool attack, is the way to go. There's quite a nice split in terms of your third striker. So everybody has Isak and Cunha, but after that, Welbeck, Raul Jimenez, Chris Wood, Strand Larsen, Evan Nilsson even. Okay, that's only 5%. So there is your space if you wanted to go different. Now, I personally would go Raul Jimenez. Again, I think it's a great opportunity. If he's going to be this low owned, playing Southampton, playing 85 minutes, you could have a different view. That's all right. So I think this gives you a little idea on where the free hitters are going, and that's fine. And I'm not telling you this so that you can copy the template or form a template. I'm actually telling you this so you can go against it if you want. I'm telling you this because you can then say, you know what, I don't think Luis Diaz should be 75% owned. I think, Mbumo or Clivett at 20% is ridiculous. I'll go for them because they have equal potential to a Luis Diaz. I think that's how you should be reading this chart if you can. This is even interesting. So if you wanted to go different, but your beliefs are not too different from everybody else because you think, look, clean sheet odds for Wolves are good, clean sheet odds for Fulham are good. Why should I go against that? Well, this is another way to go different. Now, what this does is there's two columns here. The left-hand side is goalkeepers and defenders. The right-hand side are midfielders and forwards. And so the left-hand side basically tells you how people are stacking up on the teams. So very interesting to see, not many people are doubling up on defense. There's a fair few that are on one Fulham, one Newcastle, one Wolves, and then someone else. It could be Chelsea, it could be Liverpool. That's how people have landed on their free hit, and that's fair enough. But if you want it to be different, now let's look at the midfielders and forwards. You can see the stacking happening here, where 76% people have at least two Liverpool attackers. 80% people have at least two Newcastle attackers. We looked at the clean sheet odds. We looked at the attacking data. There's no reason for Newcastle for you to have double Newcastle attack. You can equally go double Newcastle defense. They're the highest clean sheet odds. Now you can start to be different without sacrificing too much of expected points. Because ultimately, what you want to do is you want to go different but not be silly. Like, you can obviously captain Iwobi if you want over Salah, but that's, for me, going different for the sake of going different. When you go double Newcastle defense instead of Jacob Murphy, you're going different. You're taking a risk. Yes, Jacob Murphy can hurt you, but you're taking a logical risk. Similarly, let's look at Liverpool. Liverpool have double attack. Do you need to have Diaz? A lot of people will have, but you don't need to have Diaz. Look at down there, anybody else who you want to double stack on. Maybe Chelsea, you want to get a Neto. Maybe you want to double stack on, your Wolves guy. You want double Newcastle, double Wolves attack. So there are ways to stack the attack. And suddenly, if you have double Wolves attack, that's 10% owned. So now suddenly look at 10% of free hitters only have that. Now those are your points. So I thought this was, couple of very good slides. I've given you the caveats. This may not be the final effective ownership, but it gives you an idea of where people are thinking and how you can calibrate your risk. If you're ahead, if you're well ahead, I would say pick double Liverpool attack, pick double Newcastle attack, spread your risk with the defenders. Go for it, fair man. That if those are your goals, no problem. So that's how you should read the slide. Before I go to my draft, a quick word on NordVPN. You guys have heard this if you've heard my team selection or the main podcast. So you are long-term partners of NordVPN. And if you're bored of the streaming library, then you can access content outside of your region. When I was in India, I watched Match of the Day through this. So thank you, NordVPN. And you basically get a wider access to your streaming library or your favorite streaming services. Every purchase of the 2-year NordVPN plan comes with an additional 4 bonus months on top. You can use the link nordvpn.com/the FPL Wire. It has an efficient anti-malware and anti-spyware protection. It highlights any attack and deletes it before it makes a mess of your computer. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/the FPL Wire. It's completely risk-free with the 30-day money-back guarantee. Let's go to the draft. Zoff does this much better than me, by the way, but I tried. Why am I on this? This is my draft. So there's going to be some interesting colors here. And let me just explain what they are. So the people who have a yellow box around them, they are locked in. They're not going to change unless we hear something completely negative or whatever. 8 Nouri in defense. I think he's the best defender from Wolves with the highest potential, and they've got good enough clean sheet odds. There's no real competitor. I don't want to go for their keeper. 8 Nouri is locked. Palmer, Salah are locked. I have looked at Diaz. When I was on the main pod, I was contemplating between Diaz and Clivett. I just think watching that game at Anfield with the party atmosphere, playing Spurs who are going to be leaky, I think Luis Diaz is worth a punt. Even though I think against my better judgment, initially I was on Clivett, but he's playing Man United. So I like the matchup in terms of how I'll be rooting for these players. So I'm happy to go with this. Double Newcastle attack as well. You see, I'm not chasing. So I'm going for the more popular picks who I think will do well, but I don't need to force it. I don't need to change it. So Murphy is not yet locked. So let me first talk about who are the locks. So as I said, Palmer, Salah, and Luis Diaz are now locked. Isak is locked. Raul Jimenez is locked. After the Muniz injury, after it being confirmed that he's out of this game, for me, I'm not overthinking. Raul Jimenez is locked. Then come the guys in purple. The guys in purple, I'd be very surprised if I don't have by the end of the deadline or by the deadline. And they're still purple because there's little bit of ifs and buts. So why is there an if and but on Cunha? It's simply because Bellegarde is now in training, and basically Vitor Pereira said he'll be involved. Whether he starts or not, I don't know. But it puts a little bit of doubt in my head. So there will be some embargoed quotes this evening. If there's anything around that, if I get spooked, I reserve right to change. If I hear that, if I get cold feet on Cunha, the two people in contention would be Chris Wood and Welbeck. And I think I've taken on Chris Wood all season, so I'll be taking him on and I'll go Danny Welbeck. If there is news that Cunha is definitely out, then Strand Larsen is a great pick as well. So those would be the three that I would look at if I was to go against Cunha. But as I said, the ones in purple, if the deadline was in 30 minutes, they would be in. That's basically the benchmark or the threshold for having them. Jacob Murphy is simply because I'm trying to think through if there's any embargoed quotes on Gordon, because if there are, let's say Gordon is out, then I prefer Barnes. But if Gordon is 50-50 or unlikely, or maybe likely to start, then Jacob Murphy is absolutely fine. High owned, good potential, doing well, started every game since Gameweek 14. There's no reason to go against him. So that's the thinking. Murphy should be in, but I'm just waiting on a couple of things and maybe even seeing if I want to go double Newcastle defense. Unlikely because there's a lot of options, but that's where I am. Now I'll come to defense because that's the one that I'm still debating, because the front seven, I'd be surprised if I change them, to be honest. So there's three positions. There's Pope, there's Sessegnon, and there's Cucurella. So first, let's eliminate. Trent won't make my draft. I have given it some thought, and I have basically decided there is enough doubt here. And it's not like his clean sheet odds are like massively ahead of everyone. In fact, his clean sheet odds are lower than Chelsea, lower than Wolves, lower than Newcastle. So it's not like I need to force him in. I could easily play Trent over Cucurella, but do I need to? Spurs are okay to score, and then you have the doubts over Trent. If he starts, is he going to play 60 minutes? Is he going to not start? Will Bradley start? I think Trent starts, but I'm okay to go against him. It's fine. I think if you look at Liverpool defense, EO, coming back to this, if you look at Liverpool defense effective ownership, it's about 45%. So not too high, and that's for free hitters. I don't think a lot of non-free hitters will have them. So you're looking at like 30%, 35%, not too bad. So I'm happy to take it on because I feel there is high upside with a Cucurella type pick. Again, Everton are without Tarkowski. I think they will sit back. This guy inverts, and when he inverts, he's like hanging around the penalty box. So I want that one game from him against Everton. Nouri, like I already talked about. Sessegnon is the other one. So it's a question of whether I go for the Trent punt or the Sessegnon punt. And I don't think there's much in it. I mean, it's very weird to say this, right? I mean, we're talking about Trent versus Sessegnon. Who would have thought? But ultimately, the point is that if I was picking this team on a wildcard, there is 0% chance that Trent would not be in. Because I believe in Liverpool defense over a long period of time. I believe in Trent over a long period of time. Now, what is different here is we're only picking for 1 week. And for 1 week, Sessegnon playing on the right wing is not too different from a Trent who could start or may not start. Or if he starts, we may get rotation. So the doubt I have with Sessegnon is simply this Wilson thing. So if there's any embargoed quotes, as I said, if the deadline is now, I probably pick Sessegnon. But then I'm thinking, can I just go for Semedo? Like, why would I bother with Sessegnon? Semedo's also playing right. His clean sheet odds are better than Sessegnon. Or I can go for Robinson. Or maybe actually I won't go for a Fulham defender. But I could go for a Robinson. So that's the thing. Or I could go for Trippier. If I go for Trippier, I could play Jose Sa in goal, so I could go for double Wolves defense. This is why the Reds are Reds, right? I'm not 100% there yet. If the deadline was in half an hour, like I said, this would be the team I would roll out. But we have the benefit of embargoed quotes. We have the benefit of FOMO and other thoughts of seeing where people are going. Rob T is going to have his updated market odds. And this week, market odds are very, very important, like more important than other weeks. Because sometimes other weeks you can ignore like the third highest forward is a guy I don't want to get long term, so I'm not going to have him. This week it matters, right? People are actually genuinely picking these players for this particular week. And so the spreads are very, very important. Sometimes the spreads will move. Let's say the spreads for the clean sheet odds for Newcastle are dropping. Probably means shares not looking likely to start, or something's up. So I'll be watching out for that. Rob T said he will share the updated numbers by either this evening or by tomorrow morning. So we will see. So I have gone on for quite a bit. That's 20 minutes. I just want to end it with one thing. There are certain picks that are hygiene picks, and I think those are simply Salah, Palmer, Isak, and Ait Nouri. Maybe Raul Jimenez or Cunha. Apart from that, go with your gut, go with your rank goals. What do you want to achieve by the end of the season? And don't get fixated by this guy has X number of penalty area touches, whatever. They're all very good picks. So I wouldn't really worry about so much on those picks. You don't need to do mental gymnastics. Pick your players that will give you least regret and that help you achieve some rank goals, because this is your shot. After this, again, the teams are going to look similar. You will not have a lot of opportunities. These are the weeks to go different. So that's all from me. We will be back next week for Game Week 35. I'm very excited about Game Week 35 because it's a block of fixtures not a lot of people have given thought to. So I want to talk to you all about that. But until then, have a good weekend. Good luck with Game Week 34. If you're not on a free hit, hopefully you make it through all right. And if you're on a free hit, hopefully you get a green arrow. Take care.